Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast for Vernon Speak Sports Auburn. Man, we're talking about these guys from Auburn who are getting picked in the 2020 NFL draft. Now, here's the thing. I thought that, the draft picks that were picked, obviously, Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson, Noah Igbinoghene. Actually, a lot of folks were kind of iffy on Noah Igbinoghene, but a lot of these scouts projected that Noah Igbinoghene, because of his athleticism and because of his upside and his ability to be coachable and trained at the position of cornerback, that he would go in the first round. Obviously, he goes in the first round as the 30th pick of the draft. One of the unsung surprises, I think, in the draft, because I really didn't think, they were talking about him being a potential first round pick, but for them to go ahead and do it, I thought he would be a mid-second round pick, but a huge deal for the Auburn Tigers with the 2 first-round picks on the defensive side of the football field with Derek Brown and now Noah Igbinoghene. Now, as I think about my favorite out of all this, because I'm kind of an underdog kind of guy, and I like the unsung guy, easily one of my favorite picks for Auburn is a 5th-round pick in Daniel Thomas. How could you not like Daniel Thomas? He was a sure tackler, had 199 career tackles for the Auburn Tigers. The only issue that I could document with Daniel Thomas is that at times, at the safety position, especially with the speed of the SEC, he had some issues with angles. And two in particular was a game against LSU in 2018, where in Auburn has a chance to go ahead and win that football game. And Deshaun Davis was just not tall enough to deflect the pass. Wide receiver catches the football. Daniel Thomas makes a critical bad angle on the tackle, and it winds up being a score for LSU. LSU goes on to win that game by a field goal. In 2019, one of the more questionable angles that I think of Daniel Thomas was a really nice ISO play call by Dan Mullen, where everything is going left, and then you have Lamichael Pirine coming back to the right. And I don't think Daniel Thomas was prepared for, one, KJ Britt uncharacteristically missing a tackle, and in a one-on-one situation, unprepared with Lamichael Pirine, who is actually a pretty good running back, but a tackle that Daniel Thomas normally makes, but he misses the tackle. Big play. That was actually the play that sealed Auburn's fate in Florida. But one thing I really love about Daniel Thomas is the fact that, hey, he's a blue-collar guy. 5'11", 209 pounds, out of Montgomery, Alabama, was headed to Minnesota. Ironically, his final collegiate game takes place against Minnesota, which Auburn lost. But he got the call in the midnight hour, kind of like Boobie Whitlow, to come to Auburn. He's a very, very low-end 3-star recruit at about 82% on the rating. But Daniel Thomas was a very reliable football player. And his strength, in my opinion, was his ability to tackle running backs. It didn't matter who. He was a sure tackler in the intermediate portion of the football field, which I believe the NFL scouts saw this and see that you can utilize a guy like Daniel Thomas either A, in special team packages, or B, you can utilize him in certain nickel packages because he's very reliable as a tackler in the intermediate portion of the football field where nickel backs tend to be very helpful, especially in certain situations. He's what I think, as far as a value standpoint, 5th-round draft pick, very good athlete, has some struggles with reads, but will have some value in situational packages because you don't have to always be a 1st-round pick to be of value to a football team, because Jacksonville probably looked at, well, look, this guy's very good, especially in the intermediate portion of the football field. He's very physical. He's accustomed to making tackles. It doesn't matter what the size of the particular skill set player is. Daniel Thomas can get it done. Now, of course, I don't see any situation where, unless his skills can be developed, especially at 5'11", that he will be a free or strong safety in the NFL. But definitely playing the role of, say, like similar to Robinson Threezy back in the early 2010s, 2013, 2014 for Auburn. I think he can play that particular role. And with a good work ethic, and honestly, with a little bit of luck of some good plays here and there to buy him some time on an NFL team, I think Daniel Thomas could be a really, really good blue collar pick in the NFL. Really like this. Really like the fact that Jacksonville saw some things in Daniel Thomas to where he can take his game to the next level, and possibly they saw some developmental qualities because he tackles very well, especially in intermediate space. Not in broad space, but in intermediate space. He's a very sure tackle. Almost similar. I would say this. If Daniel Thomas was a little bit taller, I'd say about 6'1", he would be kind of sort of similar to Will Herring back in the early 2000s for Auburn, to where he could be a safety that converts over to the linebacker position. I could really see Daniel Thomas, if he was like an inch or two taller, being a linebacker in the NFL. All right, guys, let me know what you think about this particular video. We're going to get back to the schedule previews for Auburn because I want to talk about Texas A&M. That's a real crazy rivalry. And I also want to let you guys know that I have not forgotten about Alabama and Auburn as a rivalry, and a particular call that translated into a rule change in the NCAA. Got a lot of insight on that goes way beyond that particular play. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're having a lot of fun here on Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. Even though the quarantine is going to, a lot of states are starting to loosen this thing up a little bit. Georgia in particular has it to where you can actually sit down in restaurants now. They do the whole sanitational thing, the protocols and all that. But you can actually sit down in restaurants in Georgia now, Tennessee as well. Some other states are starting to open up. So it's starting to look, we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel of this COVID-19 thing. I hope that also translates not only into saving lives of the citizens of the United States, but also testing and possibly a vaccine to get this thing straight so we can go back to somewhat of a normalcy of things. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.